Hello, everyone. Conrad's asked me to kind of give you an overview of vineyard values and such, and I thought the easiest way to do that was kind of tell you our story, Colleen and I, of how we came to the vineyard, and give you kind of an introduction. For us, it was in the late 90s, actually just about the time that the founding member, John Wimber of the vineyard, was very sick and soon to pass on. But I was raised in a very conservative, rather legalistic church, and I grew increasingly frustrated over time. I was pastoring my home church in Milford Center, and we hired an associate pastor that had connections to the vineyard. And actually, in our local church, it had changed quite a bit. We were there for 12 years, and it had become much more open and receiving and receptive of people, far less rigid. But every time I would go to a pastor's conference in the denomination, I would come home frustrated. And I wasn't sure that I understood everything about it, but I knew I didn't fit very well. When this associate pastor came, he began to talk to me about, have you checked out the vineyard? And I honestly had my head in the ground working away, and I hadn't really been paying attention, didn't know much about the vineyard at all. So Colleen and I started attending on Saturday night. At that time, the Columbus Vineyard had a Saturday night service. And we would go down there on Saturday night and then hold our service on Sunday morning. Immediately I was drawn to what we were experiencing there, and sort of learned over time what it was, some of the elements that were really distinctives ultimately that I came to realize over time were distinctives of Vineyard. And it began with intimate, passionate worship. I'd grown up in a church, but I'd spent my life singing about God. And I had never really thought about or been introduced to the process of singing to God. And the intimacy of that worship was like coming up out from underwater and getting a breath of fresh air for the first time. It was just powerful, a powerful experience. The other thing that I noticed right away was how real and honest and simplistic the leaders seemed. Sadly, I don't know if you guys know this, but pastors lie a lot. And one of the things that pastors are notorious for lying about is when you ask them how they're doing, they'll tell you if they put on a smile and say everything's great. You got to watch that person, because he'll lie about something else. The truth of the matter is that honesty, and from the pulpit and just in interaction, talking to pastoral leaders there and realizing they didn't have to pretend they had it together. They were acknowledged that, these are the things we struggle with. This is some of the stuff that, our people are engaging and struggling with. And that was a very open and helpful thing to me, no pretense. I love the fact that they were committed to Scripture. Actually, I remember one night driving home from the service, and we had been ministered to powerfully, and Colleen's question to me was, "Steve, are we in a cult?" And I just laughed. I said, "Honey, all I know is that I haven't heard one thing preached that isn't backed up by the Bible." Later I learned a friend, Tom Paquette, who pastored and founded the Grove City Vineyard. I love what he said. He said, "People ask me if this is a cult." He said, "I just laugh and say, definitely not. In a cult, people do what you tell them to do." And having pastored for a while, I realized I've never pastored a cult. And I was impressed with how scripturally based everything was that I was hearing. And that resonated deeply with my conservative roots.